Coming up, the Flyers run out of gas against the Panthers and the Jets beat the champs. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL, local experts taking you from game to game on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. Got our NHL hosts here to recap the action for you from last night. The Florida Panthers went up 2 goals in the first period, and the Flyers responded by tying the game. But when Florida went up 2 again in the third, Philly didn't have enough to finish off the comeback. Locked On Panthers and Flyers give their takes after the finish.
Well, the Flyers couldn't quite make that comeback complete again this time. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner with the Locked On Flyers podcast, here with your quick reaction to the Flyers' 4-3 loss to the Florida Panthers. I'd say the Flyers struggled for most of this game to keep up with the Panthers, who are a much faster team. They were playing rested against the Flyers, who were coming off that game last night in Tampa. They were doing a lot of chasing in this game and were a little more stagnant than they were the night before. While they did show a lot of the resiliency we've been talking about to tie it up at 2, Flyers just kind of ran out of gas in the third. And despite scoring a power play goal for the 4th straight game, I still think the structure of the man advantage continues to be a weak spot. They allowed 7 scoring chances the other way during their power plays, which is not great. Plus, they couldn't beat Bobrovsky on the power play and with an empty net until 2 seconds left in the game when Travis Konechny scored, but it was too late by then. Once again, the Flyers had to rely on stellar goaltending to stay in this one, and they got it for the most part from Felix Sandstrom in his season debut for the Flyers. Florida had a ton of odd man rushes in this one, and he did the best he could. He made a ton of key saves, but unfortunately, I think that 4th goal is one he'd probably like back. For more on the Flyers all season long, tune in to the Locked On Flyers podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The Florida Panthers return home to FLA Live Arena for their home opener against the Philadelphia Flyers and come out victorious. What is up, guys? It's Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and the Florida Panthers defeat the Philadelphia Flyers by a final score of 4-3 here at FLA Live Arena for their home opener. And the Panthers, really, this game was really all about the defense for the Cats. And it really started in the neutral zone. Barkov was just spectacular, which led to the second goal of the game for the Panthers and had a primary assist on Carter Verhaeghe's first goal of the game, a 2-point night for Alexander Barkov, 2 goals for Carter Verhaeghe in this one. Also multi-point games for Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. Sam Bennett was constantly in the right place at the right time, clearing pucks out of the zone on the 6-on-4 and clearing a puck right in front of Sergei Bobrovsky, right on the blue paint. So just the defense, even though the Florida Panthers gave up a goal on the PK tonight, the Florida Panthers PK unit has just been incredible so far in this young season, just consistently creating opportunities on the rush on the PK. Sergei Bobrovsky didn't have much activity early, but saved his best for last towards in the third period when the Philadelphia Flyers created a late push. So to listen to my recap of this 4-3 win on opening night for the Florida Panthers, make sure to listen to tomorrow's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
The Winnipeg Jets picked up a huge win for them really early in the season by beating the Avalanche in Colorado. Locked On Jets goes over what this victory means to them, while Locked On Avalanche hosts were just happy that they got a point.
Mark Scheifele once asked the Jets locker room, what's better than beating the Toronto Maple Leafs? And let me tell you, if it's not winning the cup, it's beating the Colorado Avalanche. I'm Harrison Lee of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, and the Jets just concluded a very big OT win against the Avs in a 4-3 thriller that saw Neal Pionk score twice, Hellebuyck drop a masterclass in net, and the Jets kind of have about a half a game of really good hockey against one of the top teams in the league, all while missing Nikolai Ehlers, their best skater. So obviously, not everything was perfect. The defense at times really struggled, but the new reworked D pairings seemed to hold their own for the most part. The Jets forwards kind of got by, and there were some star performances in the top 6. You should like, follow, and subscribe Locked On Winnipeg Jets right now to find out the finer details of this game, as well as staying up to date on the rest of the season. Thank you so much for listening. See you soon. And as always, go Jets go.
The Blues and Kraken went into the third period tied in Seattle. Locked On Kraken gives you the details of how things played out.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, another tough loss for our Seattle Kraken. They take it to overtime against the St. Louis Blues at home at Climate Pledge Arena, but it is ultimately St. Louis that gets the win. The Seattle Kraken gave up the first goal of the game again, something that we talked about needed to be fixed. That being said, I think they came back in a good way. We saw them tie it up, go into the third period with a 3-3 tie. That last goal was Larson now getting a shot in, and it actually goes off a skate of someone on the St. Louis Blues, gets deflected in, but you take it. Also, Ryan Donato with just a great goal on a breakaway, assisted by Brandon Tanev, and Shane Wright gets his first career NHL point on the assist to Donato. It was Will Borgen that got the scoring started for Seattle. Unfortunately, though, after that Borgen goal, which made it tied at 1-1, a response goal, we give up a response goal. And even after the Donato goal, Martin Jones really had to come up with some good saves. So still some work to do, but we'll talk about it on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Kraken.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.